Good morning, everyone. My name is Beth Tarver, and I come to you from New Jersey. New Jersey, the Garden State, the Department of Children and Families, Division of Child Protection and Permanency. I am from the Office of Adoption Operations, and I have been with the agency for almost 22 years, so a very long time in my opinion. And initially, I was going to save this portion for, why now, why the fellowship, and I think it's important to say, where we came from and why the fellowship is important. So probably 9 years ago, I applied to Maldi and I did not get in. And so for me, I was determined to kind of be here, have this moment, have this opportunity. And I realized as I thought about my journey, as I thought about my growth, I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now. So I'm very happy to be here today with you all, with my fellow peers from across the country. And listening to everyone's presentation, you can tell we have this passion, this energy, this desire. But something shaped us to get us here, and something shaped us to invite us to choose the ARPs that we decided upon. And for me, it's always been about family. It's always been about keeping our families together. It's always been about advocating. I have a background in foster care. I have a background in adoption. And when you see things, those things, they stay with you. They resonate with you. There have been indications and events that have happened that you're like, ooh, that's not exactly the way it should have been. But we are here today because we see all the things that have happened and we want to make a difference. So for me, it's that passion, that energy, and I hope I don't get too nervous and I'm able to get through everything that really brought us here today. So for me, it was really exploring post-adoption and post-guardianship supports because, again, we can start from intake to permanency. We see the need throughout, our course of our work, but it's really having the ability to be impactful at some place, right? So we dream big, all of us, but it's really starting at one point and getting there. So today we'll talk about post-adoption, post-guardianship supports, and how we can get there. So, we'll talk briefly about the demographics of New Jersey. We'll talk about who we are in the state of New Jersey in terms of our child welfare agency. And we'll talk about some of the national trends, some things that are happening out there on the state level. Post-adoption supports that we have in our office within the Office of Adoption Operations. And I will talk about my action research project, as well as the survey that we implemented, the data, that data. And any questions that you may have. So in New Jersey, we have 21 counties. Some of them are very huge rural counties. Some of them are very densely populated large cities like the Camdens and the Newarks and the Essexes. But they're all very different. And as you can tell, the population is 68% Caucasian, 13%, almost 14% African American, 9% Asian, other races, 2 or more comprises of almost 9%, Native American 2%. So really, we have a very diverse population in New Jersey. And New Jersey is one of the most densely populated states in the country. So in terms of what we do at our DCP&P, Department of Children and Families, we have 9 area offices and we have 46 local offices, but we are state run. So in the 21 counties that you saw, there's at least one local office in one of those counties. But depending upon the size of that county, you can have up to 6 local offices to support the needs of that community. The vision at DCP&P, which is the Department of Children and Families, Division of Child Protection and Permanency, I'll call it DCP&P because it's just what we do. The vision of DCP&P is keeping families safe, healthy, and connected. Now, if you think about that vision, it's really, truly what everyone should be thinking about every single day that we go to work. Keeping families safe, healthy, and connected. And we're not just talking if we open up a case for supports and services and children are in home, but we are also talking about if our families are unfortunately in a situation where they can't be reunified and they are adopted by family members and they move on post-adoption services, post-guardianship services, we want those families to be successful as well. We want all of our families to be safe, healthy, and connected. Our values are to collaborate, to have equity, to have evidence to supporting what we're doing, and to think about the family, giving that family a voice, and to think about the integrity that we're doing. Our core values have race equity in it now. I mean, I don't even need to go over any of the other core values, but the fact that we recognize that in New Jersey, there's some situations going on, right, where race equity needs to be explored further. It's now in our core values. That speaks volumes in terms of what our leadership in New Jersey is doing, what they're thinking about, what we as staff have been talking about. We understand that race equity needs to be explored further. We actually have a race equity work group in place. We tried very hard to get, Jenny tried very hard to allow me to be on that work group. It didn't happen, but that doesn't mean we won't keep trying, because again, there's a lot that I could have brought to the table based upon the information I learned here from, my peers across the country and from Sharon and Patty. So the overrepresentation of African American children in foster care in New Jersey, let's just look at Caucasian African Americans. 50% of the child population in New Jersey is Caucasian. Only 14% of the child population in New Jersey is African American. Yet when you go to foster care, yikes, 27% of Caucasians are in foster care. Almost 42% of African Americans are in foster care. We have some work to do in New Jersey. We recognize that, and we will get there. But it's going to take a lot of work in order to head in that direction. And in terms of children being adopted, still the same. 27% children adopted, 47% who are Caucasian, 47% African American. Again, only 14% of the population. So when we think about who is being adopted, what is happening out there, we understand that we have to continue to support our families. We recognize that. And that really, truly is our goal, to support our families. So, in terms of the national trends, post-adoption and post-guardianship supports, it's just picking up its speed in terms of folks recognizing the need and that it needs to happen. We have to support our families post-adoption, post-guardianship. Everyone in this room understands that post-adoption, post-guardianship, it's a journey. We know the trauma that's happened to our children, our families. We know especially that when we bring children into a family that they already know, pre-existing relationships, we know the dynamics that are then brought to the table. Everything changes. It's not this, okay, this is easy, let's close out with DCP and D and let's keep it moving. We know the journey is going to be challenging. So it's very, very important that we continue to support and have agencies that are looking further into how we can best support our children and our families. So we have had the opportunity to partner with the Quality Improvement Center for Adoption and Guardianship for the past 5 years. And we recognized early on in our agency, in the Office of Adoption Operations, that post-adoption, post-permanency efforts were really, truly needed. And we really have been, I don't want to say on the cutting edge in terms of what we've done, because we've had post-adoption, post-guardianship in our city since I was an adoption worker in the field. So it's been a very long time that we've had those supports, but there's a shift, right? So we recognize that even though it's been in our agency for quite some time, we have to shift to keep up with the pace. I think Kelly brought up the fact that there was a training in her agency from 1972. So there is a training, right? But so again, in looking at things, we have programs in place, but sometimes as times change, we need to make that shift in order to ensure that we are, servicing the families that we need. So we were able to have a partnership with the Quick AG, and through that partnership, we were able to provide training, post-permanency services to families who are identified potentially at risk before there is a problem, because that's what we want to start doing. Typically, when folks are at their wits' end, and we've all been there, we've heard the calls, they're at their wits' end, they're given their 14-day notice, as Thomas said, and we understand that they're at their breaking point. So sometimes there's no coming back from that. And once they're there, we realize, you know what, it's highly unlikely, sometimes very difficult to stabilize those situations. We can, but it's hard. So if we are able to get to families before they're in crises, then hopefully we can make and have a better impact on our families' outcomes. So that was really part of the work with KPG, and really it has been a wonderful program. There are folks in this room, myself, who were trained to support our families post-adoption. And so again, that was just part of the journey, to understand, you know, there was this need, and let's do what we can to support our families. The Office of Planning, Research, and Evaluation, they too are working on a post-permanency project, which is also very incredible. I think the state of Virginia also is working on post-permanency projects. So there are a lot of states, a lot of jurisdictions working on post-permanency, because we realize how incredibly valuable services are to families post-permanency. And then I have to think about the work of Dr. Joseph Crumbley. I always have to throw him up because I so appreciate his work in terms of what he does post-permanency. And we had the privilege of having him in New Jersey several times, most recently last month. And I tell you, every time he speaks, it brings me back to why I'm doing the work I'm doing, because I see the need for people to understand why post-permanency supports are needed, especially with our relatives. Because again, if you think about their journey, their loss, their role changes, their grief, they're still having contact with birth parents, how to navigate those situations really is tough. And any one of us in that situation would have a tough time navigating birth parents who are unstable, putting up barriers, and then having folks who may not understand how tough this is going to be in those situations. So Dr. Joseph Crumbley is someone who I value his work. Every time I meet him, see him, I praise him, thank you for giving me this passion, because quite honestly, when I heard him probably 8 years ago, I wasn't feeling quite like this. I still had that passion, but the statement of relative placements by default, what he said, that resonated with me, and I carry that because he said, think about this for now and then later on. And his work to me is extremely powerful. So in the Office of Adoption Operations, we have the Subsidy, Guardianship, and Registry Unit. And so it's a group of staff. We are responsible for supporting the field pre-permanency as well as post-permanency. So our adoptive families, our guardianship families can still reach out to us if they need assistance, supports, resources. So we are still available for them to reach out post-adoption as well as post-guardianship, so post-permanency. And so with our office, we have contracts throughout the state. We have a clearinghouse. We have a pre and post adoption clearinghouse that's called New Jersey Adoption Resource Clearinghouse. And so they have a lending library. So adoptive parents, guardianship families can reach out to us, reach out to them, and say, you know what, I'm having a situation. Is there any references, resources? They can send them books in the mail. They send them a package. It has the stamp already on it for them to return it to them. They can also call to find out who we have as adoption competent therapists. So we have a listing based on counties of adoption competent therapists available for our post-permanency families, which is also amazing. We also have Kin Connect, which is also for guardianship post-permanency. So again, we have available resources, but as you will see in my surveys about what our families actually need, are they really tapping into those services? So I think that was a telling part of this whole process. We have post-adoption counseling, so our families can self-refer for post-adoption counseling. We have pre as well, pre-adoption counseling. Again, they are the therapists, our adoption competent therapists. I think it was Brittany, I believe, who mentioned Rutgers University having that program, and that's where our staff are training through Rutgers University. So our therapists are trained there, but also our caseworkers who have a year's experience are trained there. And we have subsidy until age 18 or graduation from high school, and post-adoption child care. for a child under age 6 or enrolled in kindergarten, health insurance through Medicaid, registry services. So again, we understand, and our program was established by very progressive women years ago, and we want to continue carrying that torch, but we recognize there needs to be a shift in order to ensure we're meeting the needs of our population, what they desire and what they need now. And I know as social workers sometimes we'll say, oh, they need this, oh, they need that. But it's really important for us to kind of say, you know what, let's hear the voice of our folks, our families who are doing this. What do they need? Let's just not throw things at them unnecessarily. Folks are busy. I think when Thomas talked about his hour training for trauma, we recognized folks are busy. So we need to make sure what we are doing, the services we have available, are the services our families who are in that post-permanency process is what they need. So my PICO changed slightly. I think everyone's PICO changed slightly. And I'm getting very comfortable now, so you guys might see a different side of me, right? So it took me like 15 minutes to warm up. I wasn't warmed up, but now I am. So our PICO changed slightly, and initially we were going to do a focus group. Initially we were going to, I wanted to have faith-based organizations involved. I wanted to talk with intake. I wanted to talk with permanency. Sharon was like, okay, listen, this has to be a little bit smaller. So we decided upon if leadership is provided with information regarding what services and supports are needed to offer responsive and reflective support to caretakers and relatives post-adoption and guardianship, will this information increase efforts to support post-permanency outcomes? So once you've been around in child welfare long enough, you understand that even if you want something to happen, it cannot happen without leadership buying into what you're doing, right? Yeah. So we realized that, and we were like, okay, we got to get our leadership to realize the value, why post-adoption, post-guardianship support is needed. How can we do that? Well, we are all evidence-based driven, data-driven, and they want to see it. Tell me what you have. I need to see this. Your thoughts on this are great, but what are the families saying? What evidence do you have to support that? So, as a result of our partnership with the Quick AG, we had the opportunity 5 years ago to host our first Family Fun Day. So that event was families coming together post-permanency, and they were able to network with each other. They were able to have a wonderful day of respite and activities for the kids. There was food involved, there was swimming involved, so it was just a fun, relaxed day. Okay, it was like a vacation day for them. So we were able to invite families out for this fun day. And we, as a result of that, our leadership recognized, oh my goodness, this was amazing, because when the families came 5 years ago to that event, they were able to then start talking to us about, this is amazing, thank you so much. And we have this situation that we needed to talk to someone about, but we weren't sure who to reach out to. So then they were able to network with us about their needs at that time. And we would reach out to them, give them the resources that they need. And it really made sense, to have that face-to-face contact post-permanency, because that's really what this work is about. This work isn't just about closing the door after we leave them, but it's about maintaining those connections, right? Being safe, being healthy, having those connections after we leave them, right? Because we don't want them to feel like they're alone. I mean, think about everything that our families have been through, and then we leave them. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. So when we sat down to think about our approach for this ARP, we thought in our brainstorming what an opportunity we would have if we could potentially survey the folks, the families post-permanency who are coming to this year's Family Fun Day. So now I do have to tell you that the Family Fun Day was July 20th. A survey on July 20th. And the ARP and the presentations were due in August, right? So you guys are feeling me right now, right? So we called Sharon Lynn and we said, listen, this is what we're planning. This is going to be tough to pull off, but what do you think? And Sharon Lynn said, go for it. I think you can do this. So we did. We went for it. So we completed a survey to a convenience sample at Family Fun Day, right? So that was some work. We informed our agency leadership of, this is what we're doing, this is our survey, so the survey had to be created. Sherilyn was really gracious assisting with that, because again, we have staff, we have a data research department. I'm not in the data research department. I don't do surveys, I don't need to do surveys. And so this process was kind of very eye-waking, my first experience since grad school of having to kind of do something like this. So we had to tweak some things. We would discuss then the raw and aggregate data and propose like those next steps. So now once we have the data, now what are we going to do? And then what are our efforts going to be since we are hearing from our families and we know their needs? So we completed our annual Family Fun Day survey. And about 35 families attended, so there could have been more adults, but 35 families. And we distributed 32 surveys. 31 folks completed those surveys. One of the people decided they, chose not to. There were 24 questions, and again, I know in our findings we could discuss it, but some of the folks after they completed said that was way too long, okay? 24 questions, really? But we had to fit it all in. There was a lot of questions that Sharon was asking about demographics and a whole bunch of other stuff. I had to fit it all in. So Sherilyn made it beautiful, but what I told Sherilyn initially was, and this is really the beauty of, I think, the project is, she said, put the demographics up front. I'm like, no, that's going to scare New Jersey away. I'm putting it at the end. I'm like, yes, I want them to do the survey, and then we can get the demographics, but I know the demographics are important, and they were really helpful in terms of what we found out. So we know that grandparents are adopting, and we understand that grandparents' roles will shift and change. And if you see here, almost 76% of the individuals who completed our survey were over the age of 46. So 46 over 65, 76%. That's huge. And again, I was going to talk about some of this in my findings, but I think it's really important to talk about it now. Some of our policies in terms of adoption and KLG at post-permanency, they're not the same. They don't match. So we offer child care, as I stated earlier, a couple slides prior, based on certain criteria for folks to adopt. KLG folks are not entitled to those services, for those child care services. But one of the criteria for that is you must be working a full-time job. Now, if you're a grandmother, 64 years old, are you working a full-time job still? You might be, but are you? And so we thought about that. We're like, oh boy, look at who we have gotten the survey from, and think about their age, and does this make sense? And I don't know about your states, but in the state of New Jersey, it's very expensive, extremely expensive. So if you don't have a full-time job per se, you might have 5 part-time jobs because you're making ends meet, and you're doing this with your family member. Part-time jobs are not included in the criteria. You need a full-time job. So although you could be working 70 hours a week, if your 70 hours is not in a full-time job, that doesn't qualify. So we recognized as soon as we saw this, and leadership had already kind of been aware of this, that we needed to kind of look at this further. So we are definitely looking at this further. A majority were female responses, 88%. Primary race, African American families, a primary race with 56% African Americans, 32% Caucasian. Primary ethnicity, non-Hispanic, 80%. What type of resource family are you? So majority of the families that came out to the event that day were relatives. So again, relatives who are African American, over the age of 55, who live in New Jersey, who we are trying to support, and we already saw early on what the how many African Americans, the percentage that were in care, and who we need to service. So, just in thinking about post-permanency, we really understand that it's a journey, and so because of that journey, because we don't want folks to come back to us, we don't want those permanency outcomes to disrupt, nor do we want them to dissolve. We have to ensure what we are providing are the services that are adequate to address their needs. Were you included in the process? 94% of our individuals who completed the survey said they were included in the process, which we appreciated. Some of the comments included, I was explained all the steps necessary for a successful adoption. I won't read all the comments, but they're in the PowerPoint handouts. Did you attend court? 90% said yes, they did court. They did attend court. Some of the individuals that said they didn't said the distance, it wasn't mandatory. Again, this is all about engagement and having those conversations about what this process is looking like, because it's not just about what happens post-permanency, but what did we do with our families pre-permanency. Family team meetings, we have those in New Jersey. Some folks have family group conferences still. They didn't attend family team meetings, some of them indicated, but 68% said they did. Sibling visits, 81% said they attended sibling visits. Those who indicated they didn't said they were and have always been together, which I think great. Keeping our children, our siblings together, that's what we should be doing. Did you receive supportive counseling? So 72% said yes, they received supportive counseling. And so, I guess this is, oh yes, look at that. So yes, but I received my information after the fact. We have to do a better job at making sure our families understand what's going on before it happens, right? So that's important for them to feel like they're part of the process and that they understand what's going on. Some of the comments that could have made the services better, and I think it was, I believe, Brittany who spoke about our therapists and their age and who they are coming in, and one of this was, it would be helpful, it would have been better if we had a knowledgeable, caring counselor. This is information that we now need to share with our PACS therapists and their agencies so that they could say, hey, listen, we could say, hey, listen, our families have expressed that this is happening, how can we address this? I love this one. Did you seek out supports and services on your own? It was, 50-50. But look at this. Honestly, I did not know I would still need support. So that means that our families, when we're prepping them for their finalization for permanency, post-permanency, we're supposed to be addressing all the competencies, everything that they're going over, everything that they're going to need to know. We're supposed to be addressing the journey, how difficult it will be, the trauma. And for someone to say, honestly, I did not know I would still need support, that means I need to go back to some of our caseworkers, our adoption workers, to say, make sure we're having these tough conversations, because that's really important, tough conversations. Did you receive any other trainings? And this is the one where actually I thought folks would have said, oh yes, I reached out and got trainings on my own. So 78% said no, they didn't receive any other training. However, if you look, it says mentor and personal curiosity. Someone took the opportunity because they were curious about their journey, what it would look like, and took additional courses only because they had personal curiosity. But obviously we all know that anything you take, any trainings you take, can improve and impact outcomes. You need more trainings. I thought specifically, families would say absolutely. And so this is where I'm so happy that the data shows, guess what, our families didn't want more training. They thought they had enough training. However, I do think there is room to work the training into the need so that it could be used as a resource and still guide them through their process and through their journey. So not necessarily calling it a training, but calling it like the resource, whatever we're gonna call it. But still being able to have that opportunity to speak to them about those difficult topics that maybe they didn't know they would, understand or need. Are you familiar with our unit? So we are the Adoption Guardianship unit. So 70% said yes, 30% said no. So we have work on our end to do to make sure families know that we exist, because that's a lot. 30% don't know we exist and we're there, fully staffed, available to assist you. So when leadership saw this one, they're like, and Beth Ann, because at work they call me Beth Ann, and Beth Ann, can you tell me more about this? I'm like, well, looks like we have some more work to do. So that's all I could say about that. And again, the contract agencies that we pay to support our families post-permanency, post-KLG, post-adoption, They said they had no clue, 78%, that these services were out there. We have folks available to assist our post-permanency families. 78% said we didn't know that NJ Arch, a resource directory, therapists, adoption competent therapists were available. They didn't know. So again, we have some work to do in order to ensure that contract is meeting its needs of the families. Cultural values we discussed, 91% said yes, that we did in fact give them obviously all the opportunities they have in terms of their cultural values and beliefs. But there was, I believe New Jersey DCF solely considered the biological mother's cultural values and beliefs. So that's a lot, right? Because if you think about it, as we concurrently plan, we obviously think about what's happening with our birth families, and sometimes we are obviously holding some of our birth parents and allowing them to make decisions still because they're still the parents, and obviously this particular person said, what about us? So we need to ensure that we are capturing and representing everyone's views. Most folks were satisfied, 84%, but there were 8%, so although it's just 2 individuals who completed the survey that were not satisfied, dissatisfied, very satisfied, we still need to do some work there. I mean, it would be great if everyone was. We know that we can't, obviously, in an entire state, ensure that everyone is very satisfied. I like that. But we can get there. So there's work still left for us to do. And these are the services that our families said they needed. Childcare. We heard this theme. When you think about, and I think it's amazing, from California to Florida, from Michigan, from Massachusetts to New Jersey, the common themes throughout the country, that childcare, resources for special needs children, group and individual counseling, aid for home improvements or moving to a bigger home. So if you think about it, especially in New Jersey, again, it's a very expensive state. Families have to kind of be mindful of where they're living, but when they take on the role of caring for our children, and our children continue to grow and age post-permanency, we understand they're going to need more room. But in our very expensive state, they've taken on this responsibility. They might need a 4-bedroom. 4 bedrooms are very expensive now, right? So that 2-bedroom that worked for the toddlers, it's maybe not going to work anymore for those adolescents. All set with the help we have, but they were interested in those first-time home buyers, right? So any program for first-time home buyers. College assistance, free lunch, because once they have achieved permanency, it's based on their salary now, not the salary. Obviously, it was a state situation prior to that. So that I thought was interesting. Scholarships and financial aid. So next steps. So our leadership at DCPP is extremely responsive to what we have been sharing. They've been positive, and it's been really incredible. They really understand, this administration especially, understands the need to keep our families in New Jersey safe, healthy, and connected. Really, our vision is not just pre-permanency, but post-permanency for all residents of New Jersey. That is our goal, our mission. And with this, although it was a very small survey, very small pool, we will continue to look into evidence-based information out there regarding post-adoption that can support the need to continue to enhance our program, which has really come very far. We want to carry that torch because, again, we are in a different time, right, where the needs are different, the needs have changed, and we have to make sure we're meeting the needs of our families. So our leadership is very supportive. One of the things we've done in terms of just trying to ensure we're capturing what our relatives need post-permanency, so post-adoption, post-guardianship, is we've instituted a call tracking system in our guardianship and subsidy unit. So when our relatives call us post-permanency, we are now tracking them and tracking those calls based upon their needs, so checking off little boxes and then opening it into a system so that we can pull that data later on to say, you know what, we had 2,000 calls this month, and in those calls, these were our needs. This is what our family indicated they needed. So we are hopeful that that information will then drive the next step. So these are all about those next steps, about ensuring that we have services and supports that match our families' needs. We clearly saw that some of the services and supports that folks in this room were talking about they wanted in their states, we have, but people aren't even utilizing them. So how can, since we have them, how can we ensure folks are utilizing them? And we discussed, obviously, the policies that we needed in order to ensure that it's matching and it's making sense. So we're on our way. So I know that the toughest part for me and this whole process was the data. We have a data unit, and I just, assumed that I was going to give them all the papers, and they were going to start. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is how this is going to work. This is going to be great. I'm going to give my staff her surveys. I'm going to hand it to them, and it was kind of like, oh no, this is your work. I'm like, oh really? I don't think folks told me this, and I think it was Heather, who just mentioned how the data was a tough part. So for me, the data was really a tough part. But when I tell you, I know Deborah showed her picture of her dining room table, and she had the papers everywhere. I was up until like 3 o'clock in the morning with papers scattered everywhere, sticky notes, and I got through it though. And so I think this is what this program has really taught me. It's determination, it's being resilient, it's like being humble, like, oh my goodness, you don't know what you're doing right now, you need to figure this out. And so I did, and Sharon Lynn's patience and guiding me in the very basics. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I thank Sharon Lynn and Addie, and I know like most of you, we started in one position. I was an adoption field support supervisor when I came here. I then moved over, it was a lateral shift to adoption, subsidy, guardianship program manager. And I don't think I would have taken that leap. I was quite comfortable in my position. I'd been there for 10 years. I knew everything, everyone, it was good. Still could grow, obviously. And I said no initially. And then I started talking to Addie, and I remember her speech when we were first here about not letting opportunities pass you by. And then I reached back out to Jenny and I said, well, Jenny, I know I said no initially. Did you offer it to anyone else? And she's like, nope. So I said, so I might be thinking about this. She's like, okay, well, you have until tomorrow to let me know. So I said, okay. And so again, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I thank you all for your time, your patience, your friendship. And this has been an amazing journey, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.